When a woman sees you've moved on peacefully, it unsettles her. Your silence echoes louder than any words. She expected pain, not peace. Your growth, your calm, your purpose, it all reflects what she lost. It's not you she misses, it's the control. But now your power belongs to you. In a world where emotions are often spilled over texts, calls, and long emotional exchanges, your silence becomes a rare kind of message. It's not the absence of love, nor is it hatred. It's something deeper, more mysterious. It's a man choosing peace over chaos, choosing himself over a cycle of confusion. And she feels it, not with her ears, but with her soul. You see, she expected noise. She expected a reaction, maybe even a little begging, a hint of desperation. She expected you to break because that's what she's seen before. That's what she's conditioned to believe, that men always come back, or they always try to prove their worth when pushed away. But when you chose silence, not out of ego, but out of maturity, it unsettled her in a way no words ever could. At first, she might have mistaken your silence for weakness. Maybe she thought you were hurting too much to speak, waiting for her to return. But days passed, then weeks, and there you were, still silent, still peaceful, still moving forward without a hint of chaos. That's when she realized your silence wasn't weakness. It was power. It was healing. It was detachment. She replays your last words in her mind, not because they were dramatic, but because they were final. You didn't try to control the narrative. You didn't make promises. You simply let go. And now, in the quiet, she hears everything she didn't pay attention to before. She hears the respect you gave, the patience you offered, the way you held space for her emotions while silencing your own. And now that you've truly gone silent, now that you've stopped trying, she's listening, truly listening for the first time. There's a certain torment in realizing that someone you once thought would always be available no longer is. That someone who used to light up when your name appeared now moves through life without pausing for you. That's what your silence says. It says, I no longer wait. I no longer hurt. I no longer react. I simply exist, and in my existence, I've found peace. She notices how your presence no longer lingers, not on her phone, not in her inbox, not even in the spaces she used to feel you most. The man who once responded in seconds now doesn't respond at all. The man who once tried to explain himself now doesn't feel the need to explain anything. She notices, she feels it. It's a void that echoes louder than any argument ever could. Your silence is not punishment, it's transformation. You didn't disappear to make her miss you. You disappeared because you realized your energy was too expensive to waste on someone who didn't value it. That kind of silence, that kind of intentional absence shakes a woman to her core. It forces her to reflect, not just on you, but on herself. She begins to remember things she never paid attention to. The way you looked at her when she spoke, the way you listened when she cried, the little gestures, the subtle efforts. They rush back in the vacuum you left behind. And now, without your words to reassure or your presence to comfort, she begins to see the truth. You were never too emotional. You were never too needy. You were real, and now you're gone. In silence, you regain your dignity. In silence, you rebuild your strength. You're not pretending to be happy. You actually are. You're not posting to show off. You're living without the need for validation. And as you do that, she's forced to watch without a front row seat. She may never say it. She may never reach out, but know this, she notices every day you don't text, every moment you don't call, every milestone you celebrate without her. It's all a reminder that you didn't lose yourself when you lost her. In fact, that was the beginning of you finding yourself again. In a world where emotions are often spilled over texts, calls, and long emotional exchanges, your silence becomes a rare kind of message. It's not the absence of love, nor is it hatred. It's something deeper, more mysterious. It's a man choosing peace over chaos, choosing himself over a cycle of confusion. And she feels it, not with her ears, but with her soul. You see, she expected noise. She expected a reaction, maybe even a little begging, a hint of desperation. She expected you to break because that's what she's seen before. That's what she's conditioned to believe, that men always come back or they always try to prove their worth when pushed away. But when you chose silence, not out of ego, but out of maturity, it unsettled her in a way no words ever could. At first, she might have mistaken your silence for weakness. Maybe she thought you were hurting too much to speak, waiting for her to return. But days passed, then weeks, and there you were, still silent, still peaceful, still moving forward without a hint of chaos. That's when she realized your silence wasn't weakness. It was power. It was healing. It was detachment. She replays your last words in her mind, not because they were dramatic, but because they were final. You didn't try to control the narrative. You didn't make promises. You simply let go. And now in the quiet, she hears everything she didn't pay attention to before. She hears the respect you gave, the patience you offered, the way you held space for her emotions while silencing your own. And now that you've truly gone silent, now that you've stopped trying, she's listening, truly listening for the first time. There's a certain torment in realizing that someone you once thought would always be available no longer is. That someone who used to light up when your name appeared now moves through life without pausing for you. That's what your silence says. It says, I no longer wait. I no longer hurt. I no longer react. I simply exist. And in my existence, I've found peace. She notices how your presence no longer lingers, not on her phone, not in her inbox, not even in the spaces she used to feel you most. The man who once responded in seconds now doesn't respond at all. The man who once tried to explain himself now doesn't feel the need to explain anything. She notices, she feels it. It's a void that echoes louder than any argument ever could. Your silence is not punishment, it's transformation. You didn't disappear to make her miss you. You disappeared because you realized your energy was too expensive to waste on someone who didn't value it. That kind of silence, that kind of intentional absence shakes a woman to her core. It forces her to reflect, not just on you, but on herself. She begins to remember things she never paid attention to, the way you looked at her when she spoke, the way you listened when she cried, the little gestures, the subtle efforts. They rush back in the vacuum you left behind. And now, without your words to reassure or your presence to comfort, she begins to see the truth. You were never too emotional. You were never too needy. You were real, and now you're gone. In silence, you regain your dignity. In silence, you rebuild your strength. You're not pretending to be happy. You actually are. You're not posting to show off. You're living without the need for validation. And as you do that, she's forced to watch without a front row seat. She may never say it. She may never reach out. But know this, she notices every day you don't text, every moment you don't call, every milestone you celebrate without her. It's all a reminder that you didn't lose yourself when you lost her. In fact, that was the beginning of you finding yourself again. She thought she knew how this story would unfold. She believed she had you figured out, your reactions, your emotions, your weaknesses. In her mind, walking away or pulling back would trigger a storm, maybe a chase, maybe tears, maybe anger. She expected drama, a loud display of hurt, a desperate attempt to win her back, because that's how many stories go. That's how many men respond when someone they love distances themselves. But you didn't follow the script. You didn't collapse under the weight of her silence or rejection. You stood still. You breathed. You chose peace. That peace didn't scream. It didn't beg. It didn't try to make a scene. It didn't throw accusations. It simply existed, quiet, strong, and unbothered. And that's what shook her. She expected to be the one with control, to watch you spiral while she remained composed. She thought walking away would give her all the power, but instead it gave you clarity. While she waited for a reaction, you were already creating distance, not out of spite, but out of necessity. While she expected pain, you found perspective. And the more peaceful you became, the more her expectations crumbled. There's something deeply confusing to the human ego about seeing someone thrive after you thought they would fall apart without you. It creates a conflict in the mind. She thought you needed her to be whole, that your strength came from her attention. So when she pulled it away, she thought you'd come undone, but you didn't. You didn't even flinch. You adjusted, you realigned, and you moved forward. Your peace became a contradiction to her assumptions, a quiet contradiction that spoke louder than anything you could have said. And that contradiction haunts her. Because if you're okay without her, if you're truly at peace, then what does that say about the role she thought she played in your life? If you're smiling without her, healing without her, and evolving without her, was she ever as essential as she believed? Your peace makes her question things. It makes her doubt herself. And she doesn't like that feeling, not because she wants you back, but because she never expected to lose the emotional grip she once had. That grip gave her a sense of safety. It validated her. Now that validation is gone, and what remains is a man she no longer recognizes, a man who isn't broken, who isn't angry, who isn't chasing shadows. You're building something she never imagined, a life without her. And more than anything, that's what disrupts her. She never considered that you could rebuild without her being a part of the foundation. She never thought you'd find joy that didn't involve her. Your peace is foreign to her because it wasn't part of the plan. And it's not just the absence of conflict that's unsettling, it's the presence of purpose. You're not pretending, you're not faking it for the world. You're genuinely invested in yourself. You've started focusing on your goals, your health, your growth, your future. There's no attempt to show off, no games to provoke a reaction. You're simply doing better, and you're doing it quietly. That kind of peace can't be faked, and she knows it. She starts to wonder if she ever really knew you, because the man standing in peace is not the man she left behind. That man might have been reactive, maybe even desperate, but this man, the one she sees now, is calm, composed, and unshakable. And the contrast between who you were and who you've become is undeniable. It doesn't just surprise her, it unsettles her. She may never admit it. She may never say, "I didn't expect this from you." But deep down, she feels it. She scrolls through your photos, maybe watches your stories, looking for signs of pain, but all she sees is balance. And that balance is not what she planned for. She was prepared for guilt, regret, maybe even apologies. She wasn't prepared for silence. She wasn't prepared for growth. And she certainly wasn't prepared for peace. Your peace disrupted the script she was trying to write. And now she's left reading a story where she's no longer the center, no longer the muse, no longer the reason for the plot. You've taken your story back, and your peace, quiet, powerful, and unwavering, speaks volumes. Not right away. At first, it feels like freedom, a breath of fresh air. She tells herself she did the right thing, that walking away or letting go was necessary. Maybe she even convinces herself that you were never really right for her, that she outgrew you, that she needed space, time, something new, and for a little while she believes it. But time has a way of peeling back the layers of emotion, especially when things don't unfold the way she expected. Especially when you don't react the way she thought you would. You don't fall apart. You don't chase. You don't try to prove yourself. Instead, you disappear into growth, into purpose, into silence. And slowly, the freedom she felt starts to feel like emptiness. That's when the questioning begins. She starts asking herself if she misunderstood you, if she walked away too fast, if she judged too harshly. She replays old conversations, not just to remember what was said, but to understand what she missed. She searches for moments where she could have misunderstood your intentions. She thinks about the small gestures you made, the patience you showed, the things you forgave quietly without making her feel small. She remembers how you listened, even when she had nothing kind to say, how you stayed, even when things felt one-sided, how you gave without needing anything in return. At the time, she may have seen it as weakness or over-attachment. Now she sees it for what it was: real care, real love, real depth. She begins to wonder why she didn't see it then. Maybe she let her ego speak louder than her heart. Maybe she let the opinions of others cloud what she knew deep down. Maybe she didn't understand what a good man looked like because she had never experienced one before. But now, in the quiet of your absence, she begins to feel the truth pressing in. You weren't perfect. You had flaws, no doubt. But what you had was something genuine, and she let it go, not because it wasn't enough, but because she didn't recognize its value until it was no longer within reach. That realization doesn't hit all at once. It comes in waves, in the middle of the night, in the quiet moments. When she sees someone else appreciating the kind of man she once had, when she stumbles across something you've built without her, that's when the doubt grows louder. She questions the way she ended things. Was she fair? Was she too cold? Did she act from hurt or from clarity? Was she reacting to something you did or something she projected onto you? These questions don't come from a place of regret alone. They come from a deeper, almost uncomfortable awareness that maybe she misunderstood the entire situation. And here's the part she never expected. The more peaceful and fulfilled you seem, the more she wonders if she made a mistake. Because in her mind, she believed that if she were right, life would prove her decision correct. But when life starts proving otherwise, when you start glowing in her absence, when you level up quietly, she starts to feel like the one who got left behind, even if she was the one who walked away. That's when the insecurity creeps in. She looks in the mirror and asks questions she never had to ask before. Why didn't I hold on? Why didn't I fight a little more? Did I throw away something good because I was afraid? And though she may try to distract herself to seek comfort elsewhere, the questions don't fade. Because they're not about you alone. They're about the parts of her that she didn't understand until it was too late. She starts to miss the version of herself that existed when she was with you, the softer version, the one who felt safe, who didn't have to pretend. And as much as she tries to blame you, she can't ignore the stillness in your silence. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't beg for closure. It simply exists, proof that you've found peace without her. And that peace, more than anything, makes her question the very decisions she once defended so confidently. Because sometimes it's not the breakups that hurt the most. It's realizing you walked away from something real while searching for something that never existed. At first, she doesn't notice it. She's too caught up in her own world, assuming you'll stay where she left you, emotionally stuck, maybe a little broken, maybe still waiting. But growth is quiet. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up gradually in your posture, your choices, your energy. And when she finally sees it, it's not through your words, but through your transformation, the way you carry yourself now, the way you've shifted from needing her to needing nothing but your own peace. That's when she starts to feel it. You're no longer the man who doubted himself to keep her happy. You're no longer the one who questioned your worth just to be enough for someone who couldn't see it. You've grown mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, and that growth does something she didn't expect. It forces her to look inward, to compare, not intentionally, but involuntarily. Because when someone evolves in your absence, it becomes a silent reminder of how much you haven't. She starts to reflect. Not because she wants to, but because she has to. Your new energy makes it impossible for her not to. Your peace, your confidence, your direction, they become a mirror. And when she looks into that mirror, what she sees isn't always easy to accept. She sees the parts of herself that remain unchanged, the emotional patterns she's still stuck in, the cycles she keeps repeating, the inner wounds she never healed. Before, you may have been the one who seemed emotionally behind, the one who was trying too hard, the one who was too invested. And now you're the one she can't reach. Not because you're playing games, but because you're genuinely on another level, not better, not higher, just somewhere else, somewhere she didn't expect you to reach without her. And that realization is uncomfortable. Because she was supposed to be ahead. She was supposed to be the one who taught you things, the one who had it figured out. That was her story. That was her identity in the relationship. But now, watching you rise without her, she questions it all. She wonders if she misjudged you, if she underestimated your potential, if she dismissed the man you were becoming just because he didn't look like what she thought she wanted. Your growth challenges her, not in a vengeful way, not in a show-off kind of way, but in a way that's so grounded and real, it leaves no room for pretending. You didn't become louder. You became more focused. You didn't become colder. You became more selective. And in doing so, you created space between who you were and who you are now, space that she can't just walk back into without confronting who she is. You stopped apologizing for being too emotional, too available, too committed. Because now you understand that those were never your flaws. They were your strengths in disguise. And instead of dialing them down, you've refined them. You've found balance. You've stepped into your own identity. And that man, the one who no longer seeks validation, is someone she didn't prepare to meet again. Every achievement you share, every peaceful moment you live, every smile that doesn't involve her, it's all a silent reflection. A reflection that says, this is who I became when I stopped waiting for someone else to see my worth. And when she looks at you now, she sees everything she overlooked, not just the man, but the possibility, the emotional intelligence, the depth, the strength. All the things she thought you lacked were simply things you were still growing into. And now that you've grown, you've outgrown the version of you that depended on her for direction. She might try to ignore it. She might tell herself it doesn't bother her, but mirrors don't lie. And every time she sees your progress, she's reminded of where she still stands. That contrast can be painful, not because she wants you back, but because she's forced to see that the gap between who you were and who you are now is the same gap she hasn't yet crossed within herself. And the hardest part? Growth is not something she can borrow. She can't reclaim you by simply reaching out, because real growth creates distance, not out of spite, but out of alignment. And now you're aligned with something bigger, yourself. And that is the most powerful reflection of all. It's not jealousy that hits her first. It's confusion. Because when she left or pulled away, she expected to feel missed. She expected to be the absence that echoed in your life. She thought she'd be the gap you couldn't fill. But when she looks at you now, she doesn't see a man who's empty. She sees a man who's full of vision, direction, drive. And that's when it starts to hurt. Not because you're with someone else. That she could prepare for. She knew how to compete with another woman if it ever came to that. But this is different. You didn't replace her with affection. You replaced her with ambition, with clarity, with focus, with a life so full of intention that she no longer sees herself in it, and that more than anything makes her feel forgotten. She expected to be the one thing you couldn't move forward without. But now you're not just moving forward, you're accelerating. You've built a routine that doesn't include her name. You've created goals that don't circle around her approval. She sees you chasing something greater, something internal, something sacred, and it's not her. It's your mission, your evolution, your purpose. And that's a different kind of pain because she can't argue with it. She can't criticize it. She can't point fingers and say, you replaced me too quickly, when you've clearly replaced her with something far more meaningful, yourself, the version of you that was waiting to be unlocked. The man who was once distracted by love is now devoted to growth. And she realizes she was a chapter, not the whole story. That realization stings in a way she never anticipated. She watches you rise, not through rebounds or petty revenge, but through discipline, through transformation. You've become consistent. You're more focused. Your circle is tighter. Your habits are sharper. You're not out proving anything to anyone. You're just living with intention. And the way you filled the silence with purpose instead of pain makes her feel small in her assumptions. She thought she had time to explore, time to distance, time to come back if she changed her mind. But your purpose doesn't wait. Your mission doesn't beg. The path you're on now doesn't allow for emotional detours. And that's when it hits her. She didn't lose you to someone else. She lost you to the man you were always meant to become. She thought being irreplaceable meant holding a place in your heart. But your heart now beats for something bigger. For building, for evolving, for becoming. And she's not at the center of that anymore. That shift in your attention, subtle but powerful, makes her feel forgotten in the most unexpected way because there's no one to blame, no one to compete with, just your quiet, steady focus on a life she no longer influences. What hurts more than being replaced by another woman is being replaced by peace, by goals, by consistency. She sees the glow in your skin, the confidence in your walk, the certainty in your decisions, and she knows she didn't give you that. You gave it to yourself. She might scroll through your life from a distance, seeing your updates, your progress, your smile, and realize that your happiness no longer involves her name. That's a hard truth to sit with because she expected to be the void, but you never created one. You simply redirected your energy from seeking validation to building a foundation, and now she's outside the frame. Not because you hated her, not because you found someone else, but because you finally found yourself. She sees that now. She sees how purpose doesn't come with chaos. It comes with calm, with boundaries, with vision. And those are things you now protect fiercely because they cost you too much to earn. She knows she can't compete with this version of you, not because she's not enough, but because this isn't about her anymore. This is about you, about the life you're building, about the calling you're following. And that's when she truly feels replaced, not by another woman's affection, but by your unstoppable purpose. It's not the anger that gets to her. It's not bitterness or revenge. It's not even silence. It's that you genuinely stopped reacting. You don't flinch when her name is mentioned. You don't look for her anymore. You don't try to explain, defend, or fix what once broke you. That absence of emotion, true emotional neutrality, says more than any words ever could. Because when someone no longer cares, their silence doesn't just echo, it stings. In the past, your emotions were loud. You cared deeply. You tried hard. You fought. You argued. You reached out. You were present. She felt your energy even when she didn't respond. She knew you were there. She knew that no matter how far she pulled away, she could still feel you holding on somehow. That gave her comfort, even if she didn't admit it. It gave her power. But now, that power is gone. You stopped showing up, not in anger, but in peace. You no longer try to prove your worth. You don't seek closure. You're not waiting for a text, not watching her stories, not circling around in quiet desperation. You've shifted, and it's that shift, the emotional detachment, that speaks volumes. Because when someone who once cared deeply becomes unmoved, it forces the other person to question everything. She doesn't know how to handle your indifference. She expected you to stay emotionally available, to linger in the background, to keep that door slightly open. But you've shut it quietly, respectfully, and completely. You didn't slam it. You didn't lock it with resentment. You just walked away and left it behind. That kind of departure isn't dramatic, but it's deeply unsettling. Because she remembers how you used to be, the way you used to light up when she entered the room, the way you drop everything just to make her feel seen, heard, valued. And now you barely blink. You're not rude. You're not cold. You're just free. And freedom, when unexpected, is confronting. Your indifference forces her to sit with the consequences of her choices. It doesn't allow her the comfort of being missed loudly. Instead, it offers her the reality of not being thought about at all. That's the message. That's the part that keeps her up some nights. Not the thought of you hurting, but the realization that you're not hurting anymore. That her absence doesn't feel like a loss to you now, but more like a release. And that realization changes everything. She might still post things hoping you'll react. She might still drop subtle hints or test your presence in small ways, but nothing. No reply, no curiosity, no reaction. You've become unreachable, not physically, but emotionally. And that is the most powerful shift of all. Because real indifference isn't a performance. It's not pretending not to care while secretly hoping for attention. It's not the cold shoulder. It's the absence of need. You don't need her to acknowledge you. You don't need validation. You don't even need closure. You've closed the chapter on your own. And deep down, she knows she can't reach that place in you anymore. The part of you that once broke for her now beats for something else. Maybe peace, maybe growth, maybe a higher purpose. Whatever it is, it's not her. And it never will be again. You loved her. You tried. You gave. But when it was time to let go, you did so with grace. And now your peace is louder than her chaos. Your calm presence is louder than any of her games. Your lack of response is the loudest message she's ever received. You are no longer available for what drains you. And no matter how much she wishes she could undo that message or rewind time, it's too late. Because once a man finds peace after pain, once he truly lets go, not just in action but in spirit, there's no going back. She sees it in your eyes now. The absence of resentment, the absence of desire, the absence of any lingering emotion. You've moved on not just from her, but from needing anyone who can't recognize your worth the first time. That indifference, that emotional freedom is your final message. And she hears it clearly, painfully, and far too late. It doesn't happen immediately. At first, she's certain about her decision. She believes she did what was best. She tells herself that it wasn't working, that something was missing, that you just weren't it. She convinces herself that there's something more exciting out there, something more aligned with her desires. So she moves on, physically, maybe even emotionally. For a while, it seems easy. She's distracted, surrounded, and not looking back. But time has a way of uncovering truth. At some point, the newness wears off. The thrill of detachment fades, and what's left is silence. The kind of silence that makes room for memory. That's when she starts remembering you, but not the way you were at the very end. Not the version she grew distant from, not the one she argued with, doubted, or dismissed. No. She begins to remember the version she overlooked, the one she now realizes had a depth she couldn't see at the time. She starts to romanticize the way you used to look at her. Not just look, but see her, like she mattered, like she was safe, like you believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. She remembers the calm in your voice when she was chaotic, the way you listened when she didn't have the words to express what she was feeling. Back then, she thought it was ordinary, your patience, your loyalty, your quiet love. But now she realizes that kind of love is rare. She recalls the small things, the things that didn't seem important then, the way you checked in just to make sure she was okay, the way you held space for her dreams, her fears, her insecurities, the way you made her feel accepted without having to impress you. She starts to wonder why she didn't value those things more, why she assumed you'd always be there, why she couldn't appreciate the steadiness you brought into her life. Back then, she thought you were too available, too expressive, too emotionally open. She mistook your vulnerability for weakness. She thought she needed someone more mysterious, more challenging, someone who would make her work for it. But now she's exhausted by that chase. Now she misses the simplicity of someone who made love feel safe instead of confusing. She sees you now and you're no longer that same man. You've grown, you've changed, you've stepped into a version of yourself she never got to fully experience because she was too busy searching for something that was already in front of her. And now that you've evolved into confidence, into self-worth, into purpose, she can't help but remember the version of you who was ready to give it all to her. That's the version she romanticizes, the version who forgave without keeping score, the version who tried to understand before judging, the version who was present, emotionally invested, consistent, the man she once took for granted because she didn't know what it meant to be loved that deeply, the man who loved her in a way she couldn't receive at the time. She might see glimpses of you through someone else's eyes now. Maybe she watches you from a distance, thriving, grounded, detached. And what hurts the most isn't that you're gone. It's that you were once hers and she didn't know how to keep you. She didn't know how to see you when it mattered. And now that you're no longer available for the version of love that cost you your peace, she's left with memories of a man who loved her better than she knew how to handle. She rewrites those memories in her mind, not because she wants to go back, but because they mean more now than they did when she had them. That's what romanticizing the past really is, an ache for something you once had but didn't fully understand. She tells herself that maybe you were too good too soon, that maybe if you had shown up later in life when she was more ready, things would have been different. But life doesn't wait for readiness, and you didn't stop growing just because she couldn't see your value. You kept going, and now your growth is a reminder of what she lost. She doesn't miss you as you are now because that man is no longer accessible to her. She misses the man who once believed in her without hesitation, the one who waited too long, the one who gave too much, the one she now realizes was never ordinary. That man, the one she took for granted, is now a fantasy, a memory she can romanticize but never reclaim. That realization is subtle at first. She might not even be aware of it. She just feels something missing, some quiet control she used to have that's no longer there. Before, she could feel your energy even from a distance. She knew that no matter how things looked on the surface, she still had a place in your heart. You cared, you responded, you noticed. That attention, that emotional reaction gave her a certain influence. It wasn't always intentional, but it was real. She could send a text and shift your mood, say a few words and reel you back in, disappear and know you'd eventually chase. Even when things were rocky, she had emotional leverage. And for a while, that gave her a strange sense of comfort, not because she was manipulative, but because power feels good, especially when it comes from someone who loves deeply. But the moment you stopped giving her that power, the balance shifted and she felt it. Now you don't react, you don't reach out, you don't look her way. It's not out of coldness or bitterness, it's indifference, emotional detachment, the kind that doesn't scream or seek attention, the kind that lives in peace. That's what unsettles her, because she remembers a time when your emotions were hers to stir, when she could change your whole day with a message, when your happiness seemed tied to her presence. Now, you're unmoved. She sees that her silence no longer triggers you. Her stories no longer get views from your profile. Her late night thoughts no longer result in "I miss you" messages. You've withdrawn your emotional energy entirely, and that, more than anything, makes her question her importance. Because it's no longer about love, it's about power. The kind she once held, the kind she didn't realize she valued until it slipped away. You see, when someone has power over your emotions, they feel seen, they feel needed, they feel significant. And once that connection breaks, not with a bang, but with emotional freedom, it leaves them exposed. They can no longer measure their worth by your reaction. They can't validate their decisions by your pain. And that loss is often mistaken for longing. She may think she misses you, but what she truly misses is the certainty, the control, the ability to know deep down that she mattered enough to move you. Now she's not sure. Your peace is quiet but deafening. Your lack of engagement is a message she can't ignore. And the more unaffected you seem, the more she feels the absence of power she once held over your emotions. It's hard to admit, even to herself, because it's not flattering to acknowledge that what she craves isn't connection, but control. That what she's drawn to isn't love, but the influence she once had. So she tells herself stories. Maybe she still has feelings. Maybe it was real. Maybe she should have stayed. But under all of that is the truth. She wants to feel significant again. She wants to know she can still shift your world with a word. And now she can't. You've healed, you've detached, you've reclaimed your emotional space. You no longer explain yourself, no longer defend, no longer wait for her to understand. That emotional withdrawal isn't punishment, it's self-respect. It's knowing that peace is more important than proving anything. And the more you show up for yourself, the more invisible her influence becomes. That invisibility is what stings. Because no matter who reaches out to her now, no matter how many compliments or distractions she collects, there's a kind of attention she can't replace. The attention of someone who once saw her as everything, and now you no longer do. Not because you hate her, not because you're angry, but because you've outgrown needing her approval to feel whole. She watches you from a distance, maybe still hoping for a sign that she matters, but you've moved on, not to someone else, but to your own wholeness. And once a man finds that, no one can take it away. So she may never say it out loud. She may never send the message, but deep down she knows she doesn't miss you. She misses the way you used to light up when she entered the room, the way your emotions wrapped around her like warmth. That power made her feel special. In the end, what truly shakes her isn't your silence, your distance, or even your absence. It's your transformation. You didn't move on with noise or bitterness. You didn't chase replacements or seek revenge. You chose peace. You chose growth. You chose yourself. And in doing so, you shattered every expectation she had of how you would handle the loss. She sees now that she didn't lose you to another woman. She lost you to your purpose, your healing, your evolution. The man she once took for granted has become the man she now quietly admires from afar. A man no longer ruled by emotions she once controlled. And that is the loudest, most undeniable truth of all. When you stopped needing her, she finally started noticing you. Not because she wants you back, but because she never thought she'd lose the version of you who finally found peace without her.